Welcome in to another episode of Odd Man Rush. Hope you're having a great week wherever you may be across our great country or our great land. It's Will Highland here recording on Tuesday morning, May 5th, Cinco de Mayo. You'll notice that Diesel isn't here with us. He's feeling under the weather, lost his voice. He's probably cheering too hard for the Mets. Um, with that said, just gonna be me today, gonna be really short pod. I'm just gonna go through the four series we have going on right now in round two briefly, and then we'll do a Bruins postmortem, and then Diesel had sent me some thoughts um, as well that I'll read out loud. But let's start with the game that happened in the series that happened last night, which is Philadelphia and Carolina went into overtime. Taylor Hall scores the game winner in overtime uh, to push Carolina to a 2-0 series lead. Really, really good stuff for Taylor Hall. He's had some heroic playoff moments, strangely enough, 2021 with the Bruins. He had a game-winning goal in overtime, I believe. Maybe that was Craig Smith against the Capitals. One of them had a big goal. I think it was Taylor Hall, a very similar goal, right in front of the net, very scrappy. We saw Taylor Hall do a really similar job with his stick in the Winter Classic a few years ago at Fenway Park. So Taylor Hall around the net front, very underrated player, which is weird considering he once won the Hart Trophy. But nevertheless, Carolina, Ehlers certainly been playing well for them. They've been getting pretty good goaltending out of Frederick Anderson. He's been able to stay healthy, which is a huge asset for them. Logan Stankoven has been incredible. That especially on the line with Hall. Obviously, you have Aho and all the other usual suspects there that have continued to produce for Carolina. And look, Philadelphia's been a great story. I like Philadelphia as a story this year. I like Rick Tocchet as a coach, New England guy. But um, I think they were able to take care of a intrastate weaker team at the time. I don't think Pittsburgh was playing their best hockey at the moment. I think no matter who Philadelphia played, maybe outside of Tampa, Buffalo, or Carolina, clearly, they probably would have won that series the way they were playing. I think they would have beat the Bruins, for example. I think they probably would have given Montreal a run, for sure, and some of the other clubs. Maybe Tampa, obviously, considering Montreal came out of that one. But anyway, that's actually a good transition to that series, which is Montreal. First of all, they take down the Lightning in 7 games. Really exciting series, really close series. I don't know if there was a single game decided by more than a goal. Um, I'd have to look that up. I will pull up Diesel's notes here at the same time on my phone in case he had anything on either one of these Eastern Conference series. Um, but you know, um, I like that Montreal, despite not having a home ice advantage, despite having a lot of expectations in their home crowd and uh some question marks about like is Dobis gonna play as well in the playoffs as he had in earlier parts of the season, especially the second half. All those questions were yes. All those answers were yes. Uh, the Montreal Canadiens played great on the road. I think they won 2 games on the road in this series. Um, and they at least 2 on the road in the series. Uh, and being sort of underdogs going against a team that had playoff experience, and Montreal just took care of business in game 7 on the road. And anytime a team does that, especially in a 1-goal game, um, you have to give them credit. Now, they match up now against Buffalo, right? And you know, that's an interesting series. You have two kind of inexperienced young teams But now they've each won a round, and they've each won a round against a team that had a string of playoff experience before them. So like they now have it, right? It's playoff experience is like a baton. It's been passed, right? And Montreal and Buffalo have it. And for years, they had to look up at the top of the division, and it was, Tampa and Boston, right? Now they helped eliminate those teams. And so, like, as far as the goaltending is concerned, since I brought up Dobish earlier, like, I, since the Sabres moved off Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen against the Bruins, they were a better team, right? They were a better all-around team. Now, I think Alex Lyon is beatable, right? Clearly not for the Bruins. But, I think Montreal has the goaltending edge in this series, but you look around the rest of the teams and they're pretty even. They have really high end top skill, right? On one side you have Tage Thompson and um, Rasmus Dahlin and Owen Power, and I mean the list goes on. Alex Tuck, right, and just Doan, and the list just goes on and on for Buffalo. I watched them for 6 games, and on the other side you've got Slavkovsky and Suzuki and Cole Caulfield, and it's a tall order, right, to take care of all those guys, like to to match up against them. And we saw the Bruins have a hard time doing that and beating Buffalo's cycle game. Now, I like I probably like Buffalo in this series, but don't get me wrong here, like Montreal has they have the horses, right? They just took down Tampa, and I thought Tampa was going to the Cup final, right? So like by cumulative property again, like it's hard to look at them and not say, oh well, they have a shot at winning, this series and going to the East Final, right? Like, I think Montreal has it. I'd probably pick Buffalo, and I think this series is going to go 7 again. I think this is going to be an ultimate war. I think this is the ultimate war of war of ways in the NHL playoff. You have, sort of a team that likes to play off the rush cycle. And then you have sort of a team that has high end skill but plays tough and forechecks well, and is good goaltending. Like in many ways, the Canadians, it pains me to say this right now, are a better version in this playoff right now than the Bruins like were against Buffalo. And the Bruins, for all their faults, and we'll get to them, took the Sabres to 6 games, and that was with them being abysmal on home ice. I don't think Montreal is going to be go 0 for 3 on home ice, right? So in that in that respect, like, I think this is going to go 7. I think the Sabres probably win at 7. All right, Western Conference. Clearly, I was again just as I was wrong about um the uh Lightning. Going to the Cup final. I'm wrong about the Dallas Stars. The Dallas Stars taken care of, um, I believe, in 6 games by the Wild. Wild, again, talking about a team with high-end skill, they're and good goaltending. Walston's been great for them in the playoffs. Like he outshined Ottinger, surprise, surprise. Um, so with that said, in this series, like I'm gonna, just pull up the schedule here. Um, yeah, I mean, in this series, they've just shown that they can play against a top team, right? And they're not unfamiliar with Colorado. That said, Colorado obviously won game one and has home ice advantage being the best team record-wise in the regular season. But for Minnesota, like we just watched them do it against Dallas, and at some points they made Dallas look silly. Now, I don't think they're going to do that against Colorado. I still like Colorado in the series, but look, Minnesota has shown something. I don't think it's going to be a cakewalk for the Avalanche the same way it was for Colorado against the Kings. Like I'll just say that like they're not sweeping the Wild, even though they have all the best players in the world. Um, the Wild are a good team, and that's a hard place to play. And I think this series, excuse me, is probably going to go 6 games, and I'd probably say um, Avalanche in six. All right, last series that's going on right now. We have Anaheim and Vegas. Trying to find the schedule for this one too. Of course, it's impossible to do anything on your phone anymore because everybody always has to ask you for cookies and crap like that. So game one was last night. Vegas won game one at home. They have home ice. Game two will be tomorrow night, and game three on Friday. So they're not wasting any time. Look, Anaheim. I'll start with Anaheim since they're trailing the series and are going to have to again win as a road team. Um, the Ducks scored a ton of goals against Edmonton. Edmonton's defense was poor, and we'll talk about Edmonton a little bit at the very end if we have time. Edmonton's defense was poor, right? And they didn't get the goaltending they wanted. Um, you know, and frankly, neither did Pittsburgh, who they made that trade with back in the fall. Um, but for Anaheim, they too had shady goaltending. I mean, Dustal was not good for Anaheim in the first round series. They only lost 3-1 last night. But like this is the kind of series I envision between Vegas and Anaheim where you're going to see some, 5-4, 6-4, you know, 6-2 kind of games. Like it's just gonna happen. Somebody's gonna pop off one night. Both teams have the ability to. You look at Anaheim and what they have at the top of their roster. Gauthier, Seneca, uh, McTavish, Troy Terry. I mean, the list goes on. But they have run-in veterans on that team. I think you look around the team and you see that John Carlson is there, Jacob Trouba is there, Radko Gudas uh, is in the room. So there's like Chris Kreider is in the room. The Ducks are looked at as a young team because their stars are young. But I think the Ducks are a dark horse to win this series and push in the West Final. I do because I think Colorado is good, right? Obviously, I think Colorado is probably going to win the West at this point, but Anaheim has really impressed me. If Dostal can give them a fraction of the goaltending he gave the Czech Republic during the Olympics, I think the Ducks can still come back and win the series. But on the other side, you have, you know, a team in Vegas with a lot of leaders, a lot of people who have won before, Jack Eichel, Mark Stone, etc. You have the Mitch Marner factor. You have a new coach there, John Tortorella, who's won a lot of games in this league in the playoffs. So, like, I think this is going to be low key a fun series. Too bad for me, most of the games are after 9 p.m. and I have a young family, so I'm not going to stay up till midnight every night watching these um these games. But you know, despite the fact that Vegas has a 1-0 lead, I actually think the Ducks are going to win this series. I think the Ducks are going to win this series in seven. I realized that I didn't make a pick for Philly and Carolina. At this point, Carolina's up 2-0 in the series. I think Carolina will win in five. Um, I think right now, as it stands, Carolina and Colorado are the teams to beat. Right? If we're gonna get a natural disaster Stanley Cup final matchup between the Avalanche and Hurricanes. Like that's just how I'm seeing it right now. I don't see either one of these teams losing in a seven-game series. They're too good. They're too good. So we'll talk about the Cup final when we get there. Hopefully, Diesel will be back with us for that. Obviously, we're going to talk about the conference finals when those are set. But I did want to share some of Diesel's thoughts real quick before I did a post-mortem on the Bruins. And Diesel also has an interesting fact that I'll sort of leave us with about Matthews and McDavid. That's a topic that we like to talk about on this show a lot. All right, so Diesel says he likes the Avs. He thinks the Wild will put up a fight, but that team is just too hot, meaning Colorado. I agree. We kind of went over that. He likes the Ducks over the Knights, just like me. We did not coordinate. I'm reading this for the first time now. He says they just beat the Western champs of the last 2 years. They have confidence, and I think they have figured out things, unlike the Knights, who are still working on some stuff. That's true. I think the Knights are still look a little clunky at times. Look, they won last night. It was a close game. You have to give them credit, though. Like me, Diesel likes Canes over Flyers. He says the Flyers will put up a fight, but the Canes are too well put together. With both Florida teams out, the Canes should easily win the East. Yes, yes, those are the teams that have given Carolina, them and Boston, if you go back far enough, right, to 2019 and 2020. But, you go back in this decade and it's been either Tampa or Carolina practically, or excuse me, Tampa or Florida that have taken out Carolina. So Diesel's right there. And then like me, he likes Buffalo over the Habs. Both teams have a swagger about them, especially coming off big series wins against rival teams that have won a lot. I think Buffalo is just a bit more put together. So I'm pretty sure he took everybody that I took, which doesn't make for a fun show in terms of disagreement. Kyle, to his credit, was right about the Wild. He was right about the Sabres. He was right about, um, I think we both picked Tampa, so I think we were wrong about that. I think he was wrong about Utah. I was right about Vegas. So like we both went batted about 500 in the first round. But Diesel also had thoughts. He says, I think we'll watch both Austin Matthews and Connor McDavid consider leaving their teams either this year or next year. This has been the first round of hockey we've seen in a while with all the overtime, physicality, and close games. Okay, so those are two separate thoughts. Um, yeah, there were a lot of close games. There weren't a lot of blowouts. I mean, I think maybe Dallas got blown out in game one, Boston got blown out in game four. Um, but for the most part, in the first round, there were a lot of close games, right? Right, and a lot of overtime games. And so he's right about that. As far as McDavid and Matthews concerned, we're gonna have plenty of time to talk about that in the offseason. I think it's entirely on the table the way everyone's been talking. You heard Leon's press conference as well. There's a lot of noise and smoke, and where there's smoke, there's often fire. So we'll have plenty of time to talk about that in the offseason. The Bruins, to close out the show quickly. I think you can look at this season two ways if you're a Bruin fan, right? You can say you went into the season, the entire media, the entire hockey world, a lot of people around the league, a lot of people that cover the team, a lot of fans, we all kind of thought the Bruins were going to go one of two directions. They were either going to be a lottery team. I didn't think that. A lot of people did. Um, or that they were going to be in the fight of the playoffs at the very end. And the latter happened, right? They were in the fight. They made the playoffs. I sort of thought they were going to be that way all the time. A lot of people were wish casting them to be a lottery team. I did not think they were going to be that bad. I looked at the data in front of me. I said Swayman can't have another bad year like he had in 24, 25. If you look at those there's a lot of anomalies in that year for him. I said you can't have that many anomaly bad starts in one year again. I just didn't see it. He had a couple this year, but most of the time he was nails. That's why he's a Vezina Trophy finalist. I saw that Hampus Lindholm and Charlie McAvoy were gonna play together most of the year. In fact, McAvoy was hurt again at times throughout the year, and they weathered the storm because Lindholm was healthy most of the season. We also had guys like Andrew Peek and Nikita Zadorov play better. So as a whole, their defense was so much better this year than last, and they also had sort of this breakout line of Victor Arvidsson, Casey Middlestat, and Pavel Zacha that gelled together in the second half. So they had a lot of things going for them. I looked at the math in front of me. I saw they had a lot of veteran guys, and they sort of ended up kind of where I thought they were going to end up. Now, did I think they were going to lose series one against the Sabres, right? The Sabres. Like if you had told me at the beginning of the year, yeah, they'll make it to the first round, they'll get bounced by like Tampa or Florida, I would have said, yeah, that's probably uh un understandable. But look, I think that's true. Like I think that school of thought that I just had, there's two things that can be true. And you can look at it that way. The other way you can look at it that is entirely true is look, you guys just wasted a prime year of Pasternak and McAvoy and Swayman. And this core that you have together, whether it's those guys plus Geeky and Zaka and the Lindholms, et cetera, and Zadorov, et cetera, like how long are you going to sort of keep and geeky? How long are you sort of going to keep that band together and hope for better results? Now, a lot of those guys with the cap going up are still going to be cost-effective players, right? Like, Morgan Geeky's contract is going to age well, I promise. Um, Swayman's contract, if you look at like what Dustin Wolf got paid and what like Lucas Dostal's going to get make, I believe there's a lot of young goalies that are going to make what Swayman's making in a couple of years. So I think financially they're still in an okay spot with about 16 million in cap space, but I think the question is like how long are you going to go back to the well with these guys in this new group, this new core group, and hope for better results, or are you going to try and shake it up, considering that excuse me, Pasternak and McAvoy are still in their primes. I think that's an entirely valid take, especially if you consider that guys like Matt Poitras and Frederick Brunet and James Higgins, who we barely saw in the playoffs, and Fabian Lysell, who's entered witness protection, like all of these guys, like who are still in young and in either in the minors or highly touted prospects, like how's that group going to break into the fold? So I think these are all valid questions for the Bruins and ones that we're going to have plenty of time to talk about throughout the offseason. But when push came to shove in the playoffs, they just didn't get it done. They didn't have the horses, for lack of a better term, to make it, past a team that could cycle and have high end skill like Buffalo, right? You got to give credit to Buffalo. Boston got great goaltending from Swayman, especially games one, two, and five, and even game six, he was pretty good. But they didn't capitalize on their power plays at all, basically, and they failed to put up goals at the end of the series, right? And that Zaka line kind of disappeared. So these big questions, plenty of time to answer them. Unfortunately, that's gonna have to do it for this episode of Home Field Advantage. I gotta run. We'll be back after round. I said home field advantage. Odd man rush. Excuse me. We'll be back after round two to talk about the conference final. Hopefully, Diesel will be back. Home field advantage will also be back this coming weekend. We'll talk about some other things: baseball, NFL, NBA, more hockey, other things, golf. We'll get there. But I appreciate you tuning in. Have a great rest of your week. This has been a flying solo edition of Odd Man Rush. I'm Will Highland.